The baby died sleeping on his furry dog. What the dog did next broke everyone's heart. A baby died sleeping on his furry companion. What the dog did in the days that followed shattered every heart that witnessed it. They believed it was just another peaceful nap, a quiet morning with an infant nestled against warm fur. But when the silence became too heavy, everything shattered in an instant. What this devoted dog did after losing his tiny friend left even hardened medical professionals unable to speak. This is a story about a love so pure it never understood the meaning of goodbye. Before we begin this deeply moving story, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share these powerful true stories that remind us of the unbreakable bonds between humans and the animals who love us unconditionally. The evening sun filtered through sheer curtains, painting the living room in amber and gold. Sarah stood at the threshold, her arms wrapped around herself as she watched the scene before her. Little Oliver, barely 2 years old, lay curled against the massive frame of their German shepherd, Rex. The child's small fingers were tangled in the dog's thick fur, his cherubic face pressed against the warm, solid comfort of his best friend. Rex's enormous body rose and fell with each breath, a living mountain of loyalty surrounding the tiny human who had claimed his heart from the very first day. When Oliver breathed in, Rex seemed to breathe out, creating a rhythm so synchronized it appeared choreographed by an invisible conductor. "Look at them, Marcus," Sarah whispered, her voice catching with a mixture of exhaustion and overwhelming tenderness. "He won't sleep anywhere else anymore. It's like Rex is the only one who can make him feel safe." Her husband emerged from the kitchen, still in his work clothes, tie loosened around his neck. He ran a hand through his dark hair, concern creasing his forehead. "Sarah, he's just a dog. You're putting too much responsibility on him. What if something happens?" Sarah turned to face him, her green eyes reflecting the lamplight. "Rex isn't just anything, Marcus. He's been more attentive than any baby monitor we've ever bought. He notices when Oliver needs something before we even hear him cry." It was true, and Marcus knew it. The ritual had begun months ago, shortly after they'd brought Oliver home from the hospital. Rex, who they'd worried might become jealous or territorial, had instead transformed into the most devoted guardian imaginable. Each night, as Sarah lowered their son into his crib, Rex would pad across the hardwood floors, his nails clicking softly, and position himself beside the crib with the solemnity of a palace guard taking his post. If Oliver stirred, Rex's massive paw would slide between the crib bars, a gentle reminder that he wasn't alone. If the toddler cried, Rex would whine and press his snout closer, his deep brown eyes fixed on the small face until peace returned to those tiny features. The neighbors had warned them, naturally. "Big dogs and babies don't mix," Mrs. Henderson from next door had said with pursed lips and knowing nods. "Dogs get jealous when a baby arrives. They can turn unpredictable." But Rex had never shown even a flicker of resentment. Instead, he shadowed Sarah from room to room throughout the day, his ears perked, always listening for Oliver's laugh or his delighted squeals. He waited for those precious moments when he'd be invited to lie beside his little human, to offer his warmth and unwavering presence. One evening, as autumn rain drummed against the windows, Sarah discovered them on the sofa again. Oliver had somehow climbed up and sprawled across Rex's broad shoulders, his impossibly small hand clutching the dog's velvety ear as if it were a lifeline to something sacred. The child's mouth hung slightly open, lost in dreams.
while Rex remained perfectly motionless except for the steady rise and fall of his chest. Sarah couldn't resist. She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling slightly as she captured the image. "You two are going to make everyone cry someday," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. Rex's ear twitched at the sound of her voice, but otherwise he didn't move. He'd learned that Oliver needed stillness, needed that solid, dependable presence that never shifted or disappeared. When Marcus arrived home that evening, the weight of a 14-hour shift evident in his sagging shoulders, he found Sarah curled in the armchair across from the sofa, watching over them both. "You're still awake?" he asked, loosening his tie completely. "I can't sleep," Sarah admitted, her eyes never leaving the pair. "Marcus, listen to Oliver's breathing. Does it sound different to you? Sort of shallow?" Marcus moved closer, tilting his head to listen. After a moment, he shook his head. "Sounds fine to me. It's probably just the weather change. Kids breathe differently when it's humid. You need to rest, Sarah. You've been running on empty for weeks." She wanted to argue, to insist that something felt wrong in her bones, but exhaustion was a heavy blanket pulling her under. "Just a few more minutes," she whispered. The hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. Rain continued its relentless percussion against the glass, marking time in a language only the night understood. Sarah dozed in fits and starts, her eyes opening periodically to check on them, to reassure herself that everything remained as it should be. When dawn finally broke through the storm clouds, pale and hesitant, Sarah woke to something far more terrifying than any nightmare. She woke to silence. Complete, absolute, suffocating silence. No soft coos, no little grunts or sighs, no sounds of breathing.
Oliver's tiny hand lay open against Rex's fur, fingers relaxed and still. For one desperate, hopeful second, Sarah thought they were simply in a deep sleep, that any moment her son would stir and reach for her with those grabbing hands that always wanted to touch her face. Then she noticed Rex's head moving, adjusting position, but Oliver's chest, his small, precious chest, wasn't rising at all. "Marcus!" Her voice shattered the morning quiet like breaking glass. "Marcus, get in here right now!" He stumbled into the living room, eyes unfocused, hair standing in all directions. "What's happening? What's wrong?" "He's not breathing." Sarah's hands shook as she reached for Oliver, touching his shoulder gently at first, then with increasing urgency. "Wake up, baby. Come on, sweetheart, wake up for mommy." Rex whined, confused and sensing the panic. He nudged Sarah's hand with his wet nose, as if asking why she was disturbing Oliver's sleep. Marcus's face transformed from confusion to horror in the span of a heartbeat. Every trace of color drained from his features. "Call 911, now, Sarah, call them now." Sarah's hands trembled so violently she could barely hold the phone, could barely punch in the numbers through her tears. "He's cold," she heard herself screaming to the dispatcher. "Oh God, he's so cold. Please help us, please." The dispatcher's measured, professional voice was swallowed by the wail of approaching sirens. Marcus pressed his shaking fingers to Oliver's tiny chest, his voice breaking into fragments. "Come on, buddy. Just breathe. Please, please breathe for Daddy." Rex barked once, sharp and panicked, then pressed his warm head desperately against Oliver's side, as if trying to share his own life force with the child who'd become his entire world. When paramedics burst through the front door, the living room erupted into controlled chaos. One of them reached for Oliver, and Rex's growls started low in his chest, his entire body trembling with protective instinct. "Get that dog back," a paramedic shouted, his movements quick and efficient. Marcus seized Rex's collar, but the dog's muscles had turned to iron. "He won't hurt anyone," Marcus pleaded desperately. "I swear to God he won't."
He loves him. As they lifted Oliver away, Rex lunged forward with a howl so raw, so utterly heartbroken, that it froze everyone in the room for a suspended moment. The sound didn't seem to come from an animal at all. It was too human, too filled with understanding and loss. Sarah crumpled to her knees, her scream cutting through the sirens like a blade through silk. "Please, please let me go with him." Her voice shattered into something unrecognizable, primal. She crawled forward, hands reaching desperately for the stretcher as they wheeled it toward the door. "That's my baby. Please don't take him alone. He's scared of being alone." One paramedic tried to stop her, his face professionally sympathetic. "Ma'am, you can't." "I have to." The words barely formed through her sobs. "He needs his blanket. He needs me. He gets so scared without me." The younger medic hesitated, guilt flickering across his face. "Ma'am," he whispered, his voice thick with compassion he wasn't supposed to show. "We'll do absolutely everything possible. I promise you that." The door slammed shut, and the sound echoed through the house like a death knell. Sarah collapsed by the doorway, her palms flat against the cold tile, her breath coming in stuttering gasps that sounded like choking. "Tom," she whispered into the emptiness, "why did I let him sleep there? I should have checked. I should have known something was wrong." Rex circled the hallway, pawing frantically at the door, his entire body shaking. He pressed his nose to the exact spot where Oliver's scent still lingered and released a long, haunting whimper that filled the house with something far worse than silence. It filled it with grief made audible. When Marcus returned from the hospital an hour later, Sarah knew before he spoke. She saw it in the way his shoulders sagged, in how he couldn't meet her eyes, in the hospital band still wrapped around his wrist. "No," she whispered.
Marcus took one step, then another, until he collapsed beside her on the floor, pulling her into his arms. "They tried," he whispered, his voice hollow and destroyed. "They tried everything, Sarah. Everything." The scream that tore from her chest went straight through the walls, through the foundation of their lives. She beat her fists against his chest, sobbing words that made no sense, asking questions no one could answer. Rex pressed himself against them both, resting his massive head on Sarah's knee, whining softly in a language of shared sorrow. Night came again. The same couch, the same lamp, but everything felt dimmer now, as if even the light was mourning. Rex's breathing filled the room, steady but strained. His muzzle rested exactly where Oliver's head had once laid, and every few minutes he released a small whine, soft, questioning, heartbreaking. "They say animals forget quickly," Marcus muttered bitterly from across the room. "Guess they were dead wrong about that, too." Sarah brushed tears from her cheeks. "He's waiting for Oliver to wake up. He doesn't understand that he's gone." For days after the funeral, the house barely seemed to breathe. Oliver's room remained untouched, crib pristine, blue blanket folded neatly in the corner where it had always been. Rex stationed himself by the nursery door from sunrise to sunset, tail motionless, eyes locked on the small white crib. Sometimes he whimpered. Other times he simply lay there, listening to sounds that existed only in his memory. One morning, Marcus found Rex lying inside the crib itself, his head resting precisely where Oliver's chest had once risen and fallen. "Sarah," he murmured, voice breaking. "Look at him. He's destroying himself." "Aren't we all?" she whispered back. The vet suggested boarding, just for a week, to give everyone space to heal. They drove Rex to a pet lodge on the edge of town, Sarah crying the entire way. She placed Oliver's blue blanket in Rex's bed, and the dog sniffed it deeply, then looked up at her with those impossibly deep, questioning eyes. "We'll come back," she whispered. "Just a few nights." That night, a kennel worker found Rex digging frantically at the walls, his paws bloody and raw. He'd been searching, desperately trying to find the small human he'd lost, as if Oliver might be hidden somewhere just beyond reach. When they brought Rex home a week later, he ran straight to the nursery and released a sound that shattered them both, a deep, aching cry, so human, it broke whatever pieces of their hearts remained intact. That night, Sarah knelt beside Rex in the nursery. Moonlight spilled through the window, bathing everything in silver. "You don't have to keep looking anymore, Rex," she said softly. "He's right here with us. He always was." Rex sighed deeply, his eyes closing for the first time in days. His chest rose and fell, with a calmness that had been missing since that terrible morning. Outside, dawn painted the horizon in shades of gold and rose. Inside, the loyal dog slept beside the empty crib, Oliver's blue blanket between his paws, forever guarding what was gone, but never truly lost. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Do you believe animals can grieve the way we do? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories that celebrate the incredible bonds we share with our loyal companions. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below.